Have you ever felt like you were rowing a boat with all your might, only to realize you were trying to row against a tidal wave? You exhaust yourself, you break your oars, and the wave engulfs you anyway. This is how most people live their lives, in a constant, exhausting battle against the unchangeable forces of the world. They are overwhelmed by change because they believe their happiness and peace are contingent on controlling the tide. The Stoic understands a fundamental truth. You do not control the ocean. You only control the rudder of your own small boat. This is not a philosophy of passivity. It is the ultimate strategy for navigating any storm life throws at you. It is the blueprint for building an inner citadel so strong that no external chaos can breach its walls. The foundational principle of this entire operating system is what the Greek philosopher Epictetus called the dichotomy of control. It's a beautifully simple, yet profoundly difficult concept. Some things are up to us, and some things are not up to us. Our opinions, our intentions, our desires, our aversions, in short, everything that is our own doing, are within our control. Our body, our property, our reputation, our station in life, everything that is not our own doing, are outside of our control. The modern world has sold us a lie, that with enough hustle, enough willpower, enough positive thinking, you can bend the entire universe to your will. This lie is the very source of our anxiety. It makes us responsible for the weather, for the stock market, for the opinions of others. It's an impossible burden. I learned this lesson the hard way. In my 30s, during the dot-com boom, I was the CEO of a promising tech startup. We were darlings of the industry, and my identity, my entire sense of self-worth, was fused with the company's stock price. Then came the crash of 2000. Overnight, our valuation plummeted. I watched the ticker tape like a hawk, my mood swinging violently with every fractional change. I held frantic meetings, screaming at my team to fix it as if they could single-handedly reverse a global market correction. My anger, my fear, my desperation, they were all fueled by the delusion that I could control the outcome. My reaction, which was in my control, cost me the trust of my key engineers. They saw a captain panicking in a storm, not one steering with a steady hand. The market eventually recovered, but my leadership reputation took years to rebuild. The storm was an external event. The shipwreck was my own doing. So, here is the practical application. Look at your professional life right now. Perhaps a project deadline was just moved up, or a key client is threatening to leave. The novice mind immediately spirals into panic, focusing on the external events. This is a disaster. My boss will be furious. We'll lose the account. The Stoic in training performs a mental triage. What is outside my control? The client's decision. The new deadline set by management. The market conditions affecting the client's business. What is within my control? My response. The clarity and honesty of my communication with my team. The strategy I devise to reallocate resources. The number of hours I choose to work today. The calm I project to my colleagues. By focusing your energy exclusively on your rudder, your actions, your choices, your mindset, you stop fighting the wave and start navigating it. You become effective, not just emotional. Let me ask you this. What is the one thing causing you the most anxiety right now? Now draw a line down a piece of paper. On one side, list every element of that situation you cannot control. On the other, list the very few things you can control. Where have you been spending all your energy? The dichotomy of control is not a one-time realization. It is the daily, hourly work of a mental architect. Once you understand the blueprint, that you only control your inner world, the next step is to build the structure. This is what the Stoics called the inner citadel. It is a fortress within your own mind, a place of unassailable peace and rationality that is impervious to the chaos of the outside world. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and perhaps the most powerful man on earth, wrote constantly about retreating to his inner citadel. If an emperor, besieged by plagues, wars, and betrayals, needed this internal fortress, How much more do we need it amidst the constant notifications, market fluctuations, and social pressures of our modern age? Building this citadel is not an act of escaping the world, but of engaging with it properly. It's the difference between being a thermometer and a thermostat. A thermometer simply reacts to its environment. If the room is hot, it reads hot. If the room is cold, it reads cold. This is the state of the untrained mind, reactive, volatile, a slave to circumstance. A thermostat, on the other hand, sets the temperature. It acknowledges the external conditions but is not ruled by them. It has an internal standard, and it acts to bring the environment in line with that standard. Your inner citadel is your internal thermostat. It is the faculty of judgment that stands between an external event and your emotional response. I mentor a young woman, a brilliant litigator named Sarah. For years, she was a thermometer. In the courtroom, if the opposing counsel was aggressive, she became flustered and aggressive in return. If the judge seemed dismissive, she felt defeated. Her performance was a roller coaster dictated entirely by others. We worked on building her citadel. The core practice was a simple, 3-step journaling process she did before every trial. Step 1. Anticipate. Write down everything that could go wrong that is outside your control. Step 2. Separate. Next to each item, write down your chosen, virtuous response, the actions that are within your control. Step 3. Visualize. She would close her eyes and visualize herself executing these chosen responses with calm and dignity. Over 6 months, the transformation was astounding. The external chaos of the courtroom didn't change, but she was no longer a part of it. She became a thermostat. Her calm became a strategic advantage. Her opponent's aggression started to look like desperation against her unshakable composure. She wasn't emotionless, she was in command of her emotions. She had built a space inside her mind where she could retreat, analyze the situation logically, and choose a purposeful response rather than an instinctual reaction. She had built her citadel. The practical application is this. Your morning routine is the time you lay the bricks for your citadel. Before you check your phone, before you let the world's chaos flood your mind, spend 10 minutes in quiet reflection. Consider the day ahead. What challenges might arise? What difficult people might you encounter? Separate the external events from your chosen internal response. Decide in advance who you want to be. Will you be the person who is angered by traffic, or the person who uses that time to listen to an insightful podcast? Will you be the person derailed by a critical email, or the person who sees criticism as data to improve? You build the fortress in moments of peace, so it stands strong in moments of war. Are you living as a thermometer, simply reacting to the temperature of your day? Or are you a thermostat, deliberately setting the conditions of your own mind? Type Continue to receive the next section. Once you have accepted what you cannot control and begun building the fortress from which to respond, you can ascend to one of the most powerful and misunderstood mindsets in Stoic philosophy. Amor fati. The Latin phrase translates to a love of fate. This is not a passive resignation. It is not shrugging your shoulders and saying, "It is what it is." It is an active, enthusiastic embrace of everything that happens, both the seemingly good and the seemingly bad. It is looking at the entire tapestry of your life, with its beautiful threads and its ugly knots, and saying, "Yes, I wouldn't have it any other way. This is my path, and I will love it." It is the practice of turning every event into a source of strength and opportunity. The untrained mind categorizes experiences into 2 buckets, good and bad. A promotion is good. A layoff is bad. A market boom is good. A recession is bad. This constant judgment is a source of immense suffering because we are perpetually craving the good and fearing the bad, living in a state of anxiety about a future we can't control. Amor fati obliterates these categories. It proposes a radical reframe. Every event is simply fuel. The event itself is neutral, it is your judgment that colors it. And if you choose to, you can use every single event, no matter how painful, as fuel for your growth, your wisdom, and your character. My own crucible moment, the burnout that led me to this philosophy, felt like the ultimate bad event. I was at the peak of my entrepreneurial career, but I was running on fumes, fueled by caffeine and ego. My health collapsed. A stress-induced vertigo attack left me bedridden for weeks. During that time, a crucial business partnership I had neglected fell apart, costing my company millions. From the outside, and certainly from the inside, it looked like a catastrophe. I'd lost my health, my money, and my reputation. For months, I was steeped in bitterness and self-pity. I was a victim of fate. It was only when I stumbled upon the writings of Marcus Aurelius that I found a different path. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." I began to look at my burnout not as a roadblock, but as a signpost. The illness wasn't a curse, it was my body, as desperate signal that my way of living was unsustainable. The failed partnership was just a financial loss, it was a brutal but necessary lesson in the importance of relationships over transactions. The entire catastrophic event was the universe grabbing me by the shoulders and forcing me to confront the emptiness of my success. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. I learned to love that failure because it was the catalyst for my own reinvention. It was the obstacle that became my way. Here is the practical application of amor fati in your career. Imagine your company undergoes a major restructuring and you are moved to a department you didn't choose, working on a project you find uninteresting. The default reaction is resentment, frustration, and complaint. The practitioner of amor fati looks at the situation and asks, "How can this be fuel?" Perhaps this new department will teach you a skill you currently lack. Perhaps the uninteresting project is an opportunity to practice discipline and find meaning in mundane work. Perhaps the difficult new boss is a chance to hone your skills in patience and communication. You don't have to pretend you're happy about it. You simply have to accept it as your current reality and resolve to wring every drop of value and growth from it. You treat it as if you had chosen it yourself. Think about the last major setback you experienced. Did you treat it as a tragedy or as a teacher? Can you, even now, look back and find the lesson, the strength, or the new path it offered you? If the dichotomy of control governs our relationship with events, and amor fati governs our attitude toward them, then a focus on the present moment governs our relationship with time itself. The human mind is a time-traveling machine, but it has a terrible flaw. It spends most of its time in the two places where it has absolutely no power: the past and the future. Anxiety is the tax we pay for living in the future. Regret and resentment are the poisons we drink by living in the past. The only point where we have any agency, any ability to act, is right now. The Stoics understood that being overwhelmed is often a symptom of a mind scattered across a timeline it cannot command. Seneca put it brilliantly. True happiness is to enjoy the present, without anxious dependence upon the future. This isn't a call for hedonism or a lack of planning. The Stoic is a master strategist. They think deeply about the future, but they do not live there. They plan for the future, but they act in the present. They learn from the past, but they do not allow it to imprison them. All of their mental energy is concentrated on the task at hand, the conversation they are in, the decision they must make now. This singular focus is a superpower in a world of distraction. When you are fully present, you are not overwhelmed by the hypothetical problems of tomorrow or the unchangeable mistakes of yesterday. You are simply dealing with what is in front of you. I remember my early years as an entrepreneur. My mind was a constant buzz of future-oriented fear. What if our funding runs out? What if our competitor launches a better product? What if we miss our Q3 targets? I would sit in meetings, physically present but mentally rehearsing a board presentation 3 months away. I would have dinner with my family, my mind churning over a potential supply chain issue. I was never where I was. As a result, my performance in the present suffered. My distracted presence in meetings meant I missed crucial details. My mental absence at home created a distance with the very people I was supposedly working so hard for. My anxiety about future failure was creating present failure. The cure was a practice the Stoics called prosoche, or the attitude of attention. It is the continuous, vigilant effort to bring your mind back to the present moment. My version of this was to anchor my attention to my physical actions. If I was writing code, I would focus solely on the logic flowing through my fingertips. If I was in a meeting, I would practice active listening, focusing completely on the speaker's words instead of formulating my own response. The most powerful anchor was a simple one: breathing. Whenever I felt my mind drifting to future worries or past regrets, I would deliberately take 3 slow, deep breaths, focusing on the sensation of air entering and leaving my body. It was a mental reset button, pulling my consciousness out of the imaginary timeline and planting it firmly back in the only place it could be effective: the here and now. Here's a real-world application for you. Next time you feel that sense of overwhelm building, that feeling of having 1,000 things to do, stop. Pick one thing, the most important thing. Then commit to giving it your undivided attention for a set period, say 25 minutes. This is the Pomodoro technique, and it is stoicism in practice. For those 25 minutes, there is no email, no social media, no worrying about the next task. Your entire universe is that single task. When you focus your scattered energy like a laser beam, you will be astonished at what you can accomplish. Overwhelm is often just a failure to be present. Ask yourself, in your most important conversations, are you truly listening, or are you just waiting for your turn to speak? When you are working on a critical task, where is your mind really? To anchor ourselves in the present and build resilience against future shocks, the Stoics employed a powerful and counterintuitive psychological tool: premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. This sounds morbid, but it is the furthest thing from pessimism. It is a strategic rehearsal for adversity. While the modern self-help movement tells you to only visualize success, the Stoic also visualizes failure, loss, and difficulty. Not to wallow in negativity, but to strip these events of their power to surprise and shock you. The soldier who has rehearsed a battle plan 100 times does not panic when the first shot is fired. The Stoic who has contemplated misfortune does not crumble when it arrives. The logic is simple. What you have already faced in your mind is less terrifying when you face it in reality. The feeling of being overwhelmed is amplified by shock. When you lose your job, the financial difficulty is one part of the pain. The shock and surprise are another. When a relationship ends, the sadness is one part. The feeling that your world has been unexpectedly shattered is another. Negative visualization inoculates you against this shock. It is a vaccine for the soul. By spending a few moments each day contemplating the potential loss of things you value, your job, your wealth, your health, even your loved ones, you achieve 2 critical things. First, you prepare your mind for the reality that life is impermanent and unpredictable. Second, and more importantly, it makes you profoundly grateful for what you have, right now, in the present moment. Early in my career, I was terrified of public speaking. I had a make-or-break presentation to a group of venture capitalists who held the future of my company in their hands. For weeks, I was paralyzed by anxiety. I obsessed over visualizing success, the perfect delivery, the enthusiastic applause, the signed checks, but it only made the pressure worse. My mentor, an older, wiser board member, gave me some strange advice. He said, "Stop trying to win. For 5 minutes, I want you to vividly imagine the worst possible outcome." I was hesitant, but I did it. I pictured myself fumbling my notes, the projector failing, the investors looking bored and checking their watches. I imagined them asking a question I couldn't answer. I imagined them laughing me out of the room. I felt the hot flush of shame and failure. And then a strange thing happened. Once I had sat with that worst-case scenario, it lost its monstrous power. I realized that even if all of that happened, I would survive. I wouldn't die. I would be embarrassed, yes. My company might fail, but I would wake up the next day and still be me. My life would go on. This exercise didn't make me complacent. It made me calm. It freed me from the terror of failure and allowed me to focus on what I could control, the quality of my preparation. When I finally walked into that room, I was no longer a man terrified of a phantom disaster. I was a man who had already faced the worst in his mind and was now simply there to do his best. Here is how you can apply this today. Take one thing you value deeply, your current career role. Spend 5 minutes with your eyes closed. Visualize in detail that it is gone. Imagine the email from HR, the conversation with your boss, the process of packing up your desk. Feel the uncertainty. Now, ask yourself, what would you do next? Who would you call? What skills do you possess that you could leverage? What would this setback make possible? You will realize that you are more resilient than you think. Then, open your eyes and feel the immense gratitude for the fact that you still have that job today. Go into your workday not with a fearful grip, but with a deep appreciation and a quiet confidence that you can handle whatever comes. What is the single outcome you fear the most in your professional or personal life? Have you ever sat down and calmly rehearsed your response to it, not as a victim, but as a strategist? Another powerful, actionable framework for dissolving overwhelm is what we call the view from above. This is a cognitive shuffling exercise, a way to deliberately alter your perspective to see your problems in their true proportion. When we are caught in the grip of a problem, a conflict with a colleague, a looming deadline, a financial worry, it can feel all-consuming. It fills our entire mental landscape, like a mountain blocking out the sun. The view from above is the practice of mentally pulling back, like a camera on a drone, to see that mountain for what it is, a small stone on a vast landscape. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly in his meditations. He would remind himself to look at the world from a higher perspective. You start by visualizing yourself and your immediate problem. Then you zoom out. You see your office building, then your entire city block, then the sprawling map of your city. You continue to pull back, seeing your country as a shape on a continent, then the Earth as a swirling blue marble in the blackness of space. You see the Earth in the context of the solar system, a tiny speck in the Milky Way galaxy, which itself is one of hundreds of billions of galaxies in the known universe. You contemplate the immense timescale of cosmic history, the billions of years that came before you and the billions that will come after. From this vantage point, you look back at your problem, that heated argument about the quarterly budget, that critical email you received. From the perspective of a star, how significant is it? The purpose of this exercise is not to trivialize your problems or to encourage inaction. The problems are still there and still need to be dealt with. The purpose is to strip them of their emotional weight and their power to overwhelm you. When you see your challenge in its proper context, your panic subsides and your rational mind can re-engage. You move from a state of emotional reaction to one of strategic problem-solving. I once used this during a particularly hostile negotiation over a corporate merger. The stakes were high, and egos on both sides of the table were enormous. The conversations had devolved into petty arguments, personal attacks, and posturing. I could feel myself getting sucked into the vortex of anger and frustration. During a short break, I went outside and practiced the view from above. I pictured the conference room, the building, the city. I pictured all of us, these little human beings in suits, getting red in the face over clauses in a contract, on a tiny planet spinning through an infinite, silent void. I thought about the hundreds of generations of people who had lived and died on the very spot where our office now stood. When I returned to the table, the emotional charge was gone. I no longer saw adversaries, I saw fellow human beings, caught in their own fears and egos. The problem hadn't changed, but my perspective had. I was able to speak with a calm and a clarity that cut through the noise. I could address the legitimate business concerns without getting entangled in the personal drama. By rising above the immediate conflict, I was able to find a path through it. The overwhelm had vanished, replaced by a profound sense of clarity and purpose. Here is a practical way to integrate this. The next time you feel stressed and overwhelmed, find a quiet space for just 3 minutes. Put a picture of the Earth as seen from space as your phone's wallpaper. Look at it. Take a deep breath and consciously place your problem onto that tiny blue dot. This isn't an escape, it's a recalibration. It's a tool to remind your emotional brain of the scale of things, so your logical brain can get back to work on what is right in front of you, here on this earth, in this moment. Does the scale of your emotional reaction often match the objective scale of the problem? How might changing your perspective change the quality of your decisions? Perhaps the most potent and actionable principle in the Stoic arsenal is the one encapsulated by the modern title of a book by Ryan Holiday, which itself is taken directly from the words of Marcus Aurelius. The obstacle is the way. This is the synthesis of everything we have discussed. It takes the acceptance of the dichotomy of control and the love of fate from amor fati, and it turns them into a direct, proactive strategy for life. It is the art of turning every negative into a positive, every challenge into a triumph, every roadblock into a runway. It is the mindset that ensures you are never truly stuck, because whatever is blocking your path becomes the path. The untrained mind sees an obstacle as a reason to stop, to complain, to despair. I can't finish the project because my key supplier backed out. I can't get promoted because my boss doesn't like me. I can't launch my business because the economy is bad. These are seen as dead ends. The Stoic mind, however, sees an obstacle as a new set of instructions. The obstacle does not block the path, it is the path. The supplier backing out is an opportunity to practice resourcefulness and find a better partner. The difficult boss is an opportunity to develop exceptional communication and influence skills. A bad economy is an opportunity to build a leaner, more resilient business model from the ground up. My very first software company was a complete failure. We spent a year building a product that we were convinced was revolutionary. We launched it, and the market met it with a deafening silence. We had almost no users. My co-founder and I were devastated. Our obstacle was a total lack of product-market fit. We could have given up, blaming the market for not getting it. Instead, we embraced the obstacle. The failure became our curriculum. We painstakingly called every single person who had signed up and then quit. We asked them brutally honest questions. The feedback was painful to hear. Our interface was confusing. The core feature wasn't as useful as we thought. The obstacle, the failure of the product, gave us a perfect roadmap of what not to do. We shut the company down, but we didn't quit. We took that roadmap, forged in the fire of that failure, and started a new company. That second company was built entirely on the lessons from the first. It became a massive success. The obstacle of our first failure wasn't something that we overcame to get to success, it was the very thing that created it. This principle is a universal solvent for overwhelm. Overwhelm happens when we see a pile of problems and believe they are preventing us from getting to our goal. The obstacle is the way reframes this entirely. The goal is not on the other side of the problems, the goal is to get through them with virtue and ingenuity. The goal is the process of solving them. This makes you unstoppable. If someone is rude to you, that's an opportunity to practice patience. If you face a technical bug you can't solve, that's an opportunity to practice persistence. If you are publicly criticized, that's an opportunity to practice humility and emotional regulation. Nothing is wasted. Every lemon can be turned into lemonade. Every stumbling block can be turned into a stepping stone. So, here is your framework. The next time you face a frustrating obstacle, I want you to perform a 3-step mental maneuver. Step 1. Stillness. Resist the urge to react emotionally. Take a breath. See the situation with objective clarity. Step 2. Perspective. Look at the obstacle from different angles. What can you learn from this? What skill is this forcing you to develop? How can this be turned to your advantage? Step 3. Action. Don't remain in thought. Take the new path that the obstacle has revealed. Take deliberate, direct, and purposeful action. Think of the biggest obstacle currently in your path. Stop seeing it as a barrier. How can you reframe it as a set of instructions? What is this obstacle asking you to do? We have journeyed through the core operating system of the Stoic mind, understanding what we control, building our inner citadel, loving our fate, focusing on the present, rehearsing for adversity, seeing the bigger picture, and turning obstacles into opportunities. These are not intellectual curiosities, they are tools. But tools are useless if they are left in the toolbox. To truly forge an iron mind, one that is not overwhelmed by the chaos of life, requires a commitment. I call this the philosopher's contract. It is a conscious, deliberate agreement you make with yourself to live by these principles, not just when it is easy, but especially when it is hard. This contract is not a promise of a life without pain, anger, or sadness. The Stoics were not emotionless robots, they were fully human. They experienced loss and grief just as we do. The difference is that they were not crippled by these emotions. They were not overwhelmed. They held their emotions like a hot coal. They could feel the heat, acknowledge it, and then choose to put it down rather than letting it burn them. The philosopher's contract is your commitment to developing that capacity. It is the choice to stop being an emotional reactor and start becoming a deliberate creator of your own inner peace. I think of a man I mentored for many years, David. When he first came to me, he was the archetype of the modern anxious executive. Successful on paper, but a complete wreck internally. Every market dip, every critical comment, every delayed flight sent him into a spiral. He was constantly overwhelmed. For years, we worked on these principles. He started journaling. He practiced negative visualization. He learned to see obstacles as opportunities. It was a slow, arduous process of rebuilding his mind, brick by brick. There were many setbacks. Then he faced a true test. His wife of 20 years was diagnosed with a severe, debilitating illness. It was a tragedy, the kind of external event that shatters lives. The old David would have been destroyed. He would have been consumed by rage, fear, and despair. But the man who faced this crisis was different. He was deeply sad, of course, he grieved. But he was not overwhelmed. His practice had prepared him. He immediately applied the dichotomy of control. He couldn't control the diagnosis, but he could control how he cared for his wife. He could control the quality of his presence, his patience, and his love. The obstacle became the way. His purpose was now to be the best caregiver and husband he could possibly be. He used the view from above to remember the preciousness of their time together. His inner citadel, built during years of calm, now served as a shelter for his entire family during a hurricane. He was a rock, not because he felt no pain, but because he had a framework to process that pain and turn it into purposeful action. He honored his contract. This is the ultimate promise of this philosophy. It is not about feeling good, it is about being good. It is about being the person who can be counted on when things fall apart. It is about cultivating a character that is stronger than any circumstance. This is not a quick fix. It is the work of a lifetime. It is a daily practice of reflection, action, and refinement. So I will leave you with this final question, the one that serves as the signature line on your own contract. You have seen the blueprint for an unbreakable mind. You have been given the tools to build it. The only remaining question is, will you pick them up and begin the work? Will you make the commitment, not to a fleeting sense of motivation, but to the slow, steady, and profound work of becoming the architect of your own soul? Choose wisely.